First, I would like to take this opportunity to uh, welcome our resource persons, Dr. Kalyani Manke, Dr. Mallikarjun Madhuri, Dr. Madhuri, uh, uh, and Dr. Nandu. I'm sure Dr. Ayaskant and Dr. Haya will also shortly. And I also welcome the participants. Yesterday we had really wonderful day, and of course today also we are expecting good participation. And I welcome the resource persons who had taken part yesterday also, Professor Rangsai, Dr. Pushpa, Dr. Goswami, Dr. Rashekar, and Professor Ranjit, and all that. I welcome you all once again, and we start second day proceedings. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sanjana.
Yes, sir. A very good afternoon to one and all. I welcome one and all to the second day of the webinar titled The Impact of COVID-19 on Speech and Hearing, Professionals, Profession and Patients. The theme for today's session is the effect of COVID-19 on speech and hearing professionals. In the current session, we have three eminent resource persons who would be delivering their talk. We shall have a small introduction of all of them before we actually start. The first resource person for the session is Dr. Kalyani Manke. She is currently serving as the Director, Manke Hearing Services, Pune. She has over 35 years of clinical experience. She has served in the Indian Speech and Hearing Association, Cochlear Implant Group of India, and American Speech and Hearing Association in various capacities. She is a recipient of nearly 13 different awards. She has a diversified work experience at national as well as international levels. Ma'am will be speaking on the topic experience of COVID-19 and its effect on clinical practice. The second resource person we have with us today is Dr. B. Mallikarjun Ars. He is currently serving as the consultant audiologist, PHC Hearing Healthcare, Ahmedabad. So, sir will be addressing the topic COVID-19, an extraordinary crisis and crisis management. Sir has worked almost a decade in BM Institute of Mental Health. He has trained 18 batches of BSc, including audiology and speech therapy for Gujarat University. He has served as an honorary audiologist at various organizations, including SCL General Hospital, Blind People Association, Gujarat Medical and Research Institute, Ahmedabad. He was also a practicing audiologist and speech pathologist. He has conducted workshop on spectral analysis and voice analysis for Forensic Lab, Gujarat. He has a special interest in acoustic and voice analysis. The third resource person we have with us today is Dr. Madhuri Gore. She is currently serving as the Deputy Technical Director, SR Chandrasekhar Institute of Speech and Hearing, Bangalore. Ma'am will be addressing the topic experience of COVID-19 and its effect on professional practice. Ma'am is an alumnus of AISH. She has completed her undergraduation and post-graduation from All India Institute of Speech and Hearing. She has obtained her PhD from SR Chandrasekhar Institute of Speech and Hearing. She has taught both undergraduates, postgraduates, and various diploma programs. Her areas of research include auditory evoked potentials, noise and hearing conservation, diagnostic audiology, and cochlear implants. She has guided over 58 master's dissertation, 13 independent projects. She has several publications to her credit. She is a member of various academic bodies. She is a recipient of various awards. So these are the three resource persons for today's session. We have Dr. Asha Yathiraj, who will be the moderator for the session. So with this note, I request Dr. Kalyani Mandke to take over the session.
Thank you, Sanjana. Thank you, Dr. Nataraja, taking my comment on WhatsApp. I never thought people will read WhatsApp messages so seriously, but you have taken it very to the heart and acted upon it so promptly. So thank you so much. I'm really honored with that, because I really felt that we need to have a lot of brainstorming discussion on this issue, how it affects on our profession, training program, individual, many things. There are many layers. So may I allow to share the screen, please? Hello.
Ma'am, you have given the permission, ma'am. You can share the screen directly.
Sure. Okay. Give me a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, friends, so this is the experience of COVID and its effect on this. Now it's, of course, two waves. Sort of I will be highlighting about it, or it's another journey now. What happened from February or March 2020 till today. So it's a cumulative thing. It's a little reflection as well as, just a monologue also, because how I think it, so those kind of thing. But of course, there is a message, definitely. So certain vocabulary like lockdown, new normal, social distancing, never heard. Lockdown was always what, the connected with manufacturing units and all other things. So suddenly it just bombarded on us. But we as a private practitioner or professionals were badly hit, because very honestly, we are on daily wages. If the shutter is up, revenue is there. Shutter is down, there is no revenue. So the stress was very high, how to manage the show, how long will it go? And if we fail, if we cannot sustain, what will happen? Because it's a responsibility of the center, the logistic part, but the employees also. So a lot of things are there. And of course, very honestly, there were negative thoughts. If things go wrong, that was bothering. If things, continue for a very long time. So early period was very difficult. But anyway, new normal started getting established because business opened up we started working end of June, third week of June. And then July onward, it started picking up. September onward, it was really good. We were surprised because I always used to feel that hearing aid is a product nobody wants to buy, but need of hearing instrument excels so much. And just very honestly, September, October, November, December went on and on and on. And we really got a wow feeling. And then looking back, end of the financial year, we said, wow, 2020 was not a bad year. But again, we trapped into it, So now the financial year has become 9 months of, instead of 12 months, whole thing, what we talk about. So I'm just going to do little reflection in 3 stages: managing the show, delivery system or customer satisfaction, and then personal growth, how things were there, So staff, my major concern was with my staff, okay. I always consider I'm looking after some families, 15 people are working with me. So I keep saying all the time, I'm looking after 15 families. So we decided not to cut the salary at all, whatever. I liquidate my personal savings as such, but no salary cut. And then business open, and then we started thinking about it, what we want to do. So we really wrote down all the SOPs. We never use PPE kit or anything, but more norms or, standardization of procedure. We thought about the sanitization, changing of hand gloves, mask, and a lot of things as such. That gave the confidence to our staff that I'm really concerned about them. And of course, customers also felt good. They even today we do all this sanitization, cleaning and everything. And patients are so happy that we are really looking after all those minute things as such. Then, of course, we had some bad stroke there at that time. In month of September, my husband and myself, we both were COVID positive. My husband was hospitalized. And then that time, I was really in two minds. Should we close our clinic and all? And my staff decided, no, we will run the show. You both should not think about the clinic at all. And none of us are, COVID positive. So we will manage all those things. And then the entire responsibility was on our staff. See, you go on holidays for a week or 15 days, scenario is different. But when both of the main pillars are away from work because of the illness, and like that time COVID signs, symptoms, and then hospitalization were really giving a lot of stress. At that time, how the staff things mattered a lot, but that entire responsibility was on our staff. And many of you may be knowing that I have that exchange scheme about it. That's really the golden point for us. The entire business peak always is in month of September and October. And my staff said, we will manage this show. And we really reached the magic number. This gave such a wow feeling to everyone. We could not believe that we will do all that. So my staff morale was up. And September to January, it just went up and up and up. We never could not believe it. How come the hearing aid business is going up as such? Anyway, I'll discuss it a little later, what was our analysis about it. But again, then February onward, just took a little dip or a stronger dip now. And now we are working, but it's not the same as such. But this time, fear factor is not there. My staff says, madam, we will recover. Don't worry. We will show the same performance what we did last year. So what the second wave in that, we are not afraid about anything. Our moral is up. But then what did we do in this entire thing? So month of June to August, it was just troubleshooting, demand for repairs of hearing aid batteries. So in true sense, there was no revenue, means you sell a battery for 40 rupees, you just do some troubleshooting for 50 rupees or 100 rupees, does not fetch you any revenue. Then at that time, this was really interesting. Month of June, May, June, many clients used to call, the hearing aid is not working. And I used to make a video call and try to help them. And it failed. Even somehow video call guidance and all other things. But interestingly, I see a change now. A month of last year, in 2020, April, May, people were not comfortable to handle smartphone or the features of the phone. They may be having that smartphone then also, but the features, they were not familiar. But now today, now clients can handle the hearing aid apps, Bluetooth, and they go very easily, they do troubleshooting. So that is really very wonderful as such. But the behavior, customer behavior really gave us a lot of learning curve also. The month of July, August, September, there used to be huge lines in front of our clinic because we were monitoring how many people will be in and who will sit where and all other things. And client had very low tolerance and they really had heated arguments. Appointment feature did not work, limited hours. So it was very, very, very stressful. But let me be honest, secretly, it gave us a good feeling that people are there, means we have a business and they trust us. They are there, they are ready to wait. So that's also equally important. But what I learned in that, I had to really give the confidence of the frontline healthcare workers out of my staff, because they had that all anxiety that they will not contract the disease, and there are many, burnout feeling, anxiety, fear of transmitting infection, especially they were worried about at home, their family members, that these people should not be the carrier. And that was something I had done a lot of talking about all the time. But even the change in customer behavior also, we noticed it. A lot of depression and feeling of loneliness, or there is no point in now living onward and all. So withdrawal symptoms very, very strong. So we spend a lot of time in that. And I realized that we have to sort of undo or change our counseling approach also. The human first, individual first, hearing aid is secondary. And that was something, you know, spending time with them became very meaningful. But other thing also I noticed was change in clients' behavior. Acceptance of hearing loss became so easy. Means in the 2019, 2017, we were struggling, telling the individual, you have a problem. But this time, because of the facial mask, the barrier and social distancing, people realize that there are the communication barrier, the acceptance of the hearing loss. Means they would just say, yes, I'm hard of hearing. So decision making became very fast. Now the pattern is same even today also. Means the kind of work we would spend an hour and a half for them. Now within half an hour, the decision is done, because the clients come prepared that, yes, I have a problem, I need to find a solution. Binaural amplification also became very easy thing. Once again, the same thing, all the face reading, visual cues are gone. So they're dependent only on the auditory inputs as such. That's another, you know, good thing we noticed at such. You talk about binaural and everybody say, yes, I know it is very important kind of thing. And earlier, like we used to give why we have 2 years and what is localization and why the clarity of speech and all. Now the client himself says, no, I know I need 2 hearing aids. So that change is also noticeable. Rechargeable instrument became like a demand, because people had suffered because not having the batteries for the hearing aid, or no access to get batteries and all. So rechargeable hearing aid becomes suddenly the most wanted product. But the shortcoming was we have stopped giving home trials. We don't want to keep coming in and out the patient. That's one thing. We don't know how the hearing aid is handled at home and all other thing, and that getting back and then sanitization and all other thing. So that has created some limitations. But we will find out some way. So in nutshell, I'm just want to sort of, you know, reflection of 2 waves. Last year, it was a fear phobia. It was very high. June, we just started, but June, July were very stressful. That fear of unknown was there, you know. Are we doing a good job? Are we safe? Are we safe? That kind of thing was there. And every time I used to feel, we don't know who is a carrier. Every client may be a carrier. How to identify, how to make sure that, you know, we are safe as such. September onward, that fear factor sort of started coming down as such. But last wave was its fear phobia. This year, when the numbers started rising, COVID positive cases, we were cool. Nobody, even the people coming in were cool as such. They said, yes, ye to hona hi tha, kind of thing, you know. This year we took the advantage of, you know, defining audiology clinic as essential services. I don't know whether we are really into essential services, but I said I'm ready to defend that if somebody asks me that question. But we just kept our clinic open in entire period of the second, when even when the lockdown was there, we worked only in those limited hours, 10 to 2 as such. So the services were reduced, but means the working hours reduced, services were on. Interestingly, babies were asking for, families were asking for BERA test and all, and which we turned it down for mapping or something. I said, don't come out, don't bring your children. But most, unless it is must kind of thing, but most of the thing we managed very well. But this time, you know, the number rising, and then there were many death tolls, you know. Everybody would say, oh, I know so and so has died, so and so. I just 1 week, like little obsessive thing activity. I was asking, how many people can you count that you know somebody had died? Maybe your neighbor, relatives, distant, family, and everybody said 10, 12, 15. So this was very shocking, you know, this number don't tell. That really gave a sad feeling that what are we doing? Why are we doing? Do we have a hope? So last year it was a fear phobia, but this time it was like, what is the value of life? You know, we become philosophical thinking about it. But now last year and this year, what we really, the message is very strong. Ours is an uprising industry. We have no fear whatsoever. People are ready to invest in hearing aids. So that is a comfort factor as such. Acceptance of RIC hearing aids has increased. Accessories, wireless accessories, mobile phone app, everything became so easy. I'm sure 2 years ago, we would not have thought about it. Now, everybody is ready to learn new things because life should be easier. So that was the whole thing. So, and it just gave me the full confidence that our business, our industry has a full hope. No matter what happens, Andi ao tufan aaye, whatever things happen, we have a future. We can sustain in hard times. That's another thing, that was a very good part about it, that it's not sort of the end of the world at all. So these 2 years have given good time to think, analyze, plan, a lot of things as such. Looking back, 2020 or 21 is not going to be bad year financially, I'm talking about, or overall as such. Other thing I realize is competition is not with anyone, not with your competitors, next door person, who is doing what and all other thing. It's about competition with against self, because we have to maintain these norms and raise the bar up and up and up. And there are very many challenges are there, but it has given the confidence we will rise. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. In a nutshell, you very briefly explained how the clinical services were hampered due to COVID-19. We will take up the discussion towards the end. I now request Dr. B. Mallikarjun Ars to take over.
Thank you, Sanjana.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah. Well, once again, I thank Dr. Nataraj for involving me in this webinar. In the beginning, I was a little hesitant whether I should participate or not. He said, whether you agree or not, I have included your name. So again, I thought working about it. And I said, let me share my experiences. And I must really thank JSS Institute for giving me an opportunity to be a resource person, and the team, which is very cooperative and helping me in sharing my participation. Crisis. Now, the way the crisis has been described, first it is negative. One, it is unstable, dangerous, it happens abruptly. Being in Gujarat, the year we started our private practice, we had what we call Andolan, anti-reservation, which lasted for a week, and it really hit as far as our business is concerned. When I was talking to my professional guru, he advised, even if you practice for 1 year, even if it's 12 months, only consider you have practiced 11 months, keep 1 month earning as a buffer. That was his advice then. We meticulously followed that. In Gujarat, we have faced earthquake and flood. Then we had riots and anti-reservations and Hindu-Muslim riot, and again, Godhra incidents. Periodically, almost every once in 5 years, we had this crisis. When this COVID-19 occurred, I also thought, this is one more crisis. And our experiences with crisis, as Kalyani pointed out, whenever it recovered, it always compensated for the business loss. I thought even COVID will last, maybe it is global, it is more intense. It may take a little longer time, that was the hope. But with that, we continued, like we would reopen when the condition improves. Because of our age and the pre-morbid condition, we strictly followed the guidelines of the government. And we said, unless it is a must, we will not go out. So practically for 3 months, right from month of March, almost till August, we were closed. In late July, we started. Most of our experiences were almost same as Kalyani explained. Even our activities, both business and professional activities, revived. And we also were working for limited hours. Most of the time, we said that only the patients who were given appointment were seen. Now, during this COVID, there were a lot of webinars that happened by Isha and many organizations, and healthcare industries went on conducting webinars after webinars. This also gave us a thought that what would be the future. Then we thought we should change our mindset. Now we realize there is a demand for the tele-practice and telehealth. We took the telehealth as an essential service model rather than an optional model. We started working on it as the demand increased for alternate mode of intervention during this lockdown. We used to have many phone calls asking, like, do we do teletherapy? Do we do teleconsultancy? This is already there. Now we thought of working on that. Then immediately we thought that we should develop this hybrid work culture. Now we little explored on the internet, and also we thought that what is this hybrid work culture is, and this included online and again followed by face-to-face and again online. We thought, why not the people who are making inquiry, we started screening through this video conference and WhatsApp messages, and screening and engaging them like what kind of help they require. And we minimized our activity at the clinic. We exclusively made it for understanding their referral problem or the diagnostic work as far as the hearing is concerned. And then we offered them a follow-up support even for maintenance and for counseling and for the management. Now, looking into the condition, the one thing that we followed is we meticulously followed the COVID status in the country and in the state. We always look for the trend. When COVID condition, when it was showed the downward trend, when the number of cases came to double digit, we thought it's a time to restart the clinic. We thought of staggering the time. We asked the people to come very early or late evening, explaining that the number of public movement in the premises will be less, and also we can space in between the clients for maintaining and safeguard the COVID protocol. So even the parking was easy and the public movement were less, and most of our clients were very cooperative, they agreed for it. Now, like as I explained, we went on evaluating. Our practice, as Kalyani rightly pointed out, it picked up from August right up to February. It is very good. Most of our financial condition also improved, business also improved, and we thought, yes, this crisis is also as good as the previous crisis we had faced, and we are going to recover. But immediate, as she rightly pointed out, COVID wave 2 was more intense. Earlier, the fear was it only senior citizen and people with comorbid condition having pure immunity will be affected. This time, when we were in the clinic, the pediatrician and the neurologist who are nearby, they started telling, this has started affecting the children, and the age is not a criteria, and the severity is more. This again created a panic in us. Again, we thought that yes, we have to reschedule. We will attend the clinic only when and it is very essential. Of course, there were times when the people who exclusively depended on their hearing, especially cochlear implant patients and some of the hearing aid patients, they became panicked when their instrument was not working. At that time, we made visit to the clinic, and sometime we also had a provision of providing the loaners as a standby. and which we used the what we call it as a third party like Genie services to pick up the devices from home and deliver to their home. And again, the services continued as and when required. Now, we set a priority. Who are the cases should be seen? As Kalyani rightly pointed out, there is a hope to thrive and we can survive. Yes, only thing is we set the priority, who should be given first attention, who should be taken later. And because the people, every our clients have trust on us, we said that we can't afford to lose them. We can't afford to say that we have closed them. We always made an alternate method, even giving the services at home doorstep or calling them at an odd time to provide the required services. Now, whatever that we talk, we have to have a reference. Now, me putting 4 decades of professional activity and in private practice, I classified my life cycle as an audiologist, speech and language pathologist, a private practitioner. First 10 years, I call it as a startup. Now, all my efficiency I had about my speech and hearing science, I put it into practice and validated, like what is that which interests me, which are the type of activities I should continue as a private practice, which I should say that I may not be showing interest to continue the activities, because being in a private practice, I had a choice to select the type of activities I would like to continue. From 10 to 20 years, it was more of a survival. There, my purpose was to establish an identity, improve my competence. Now, this was an era where digital technology came into the market, both in hearing science and speech science. Now, I had to invest money, learn the technique, have the proficiency, develop a competence to that an extent, like I should become an expert in that particular skill. So this is what I worked for the second decade. And the third decade is more a sustaining. Now, whatever the knowledge that I acquired by experiences that I had with the skills, I thought that I should share with the people who look for it. That was the time when I seriously involved myself in professional training, and I shared all my experiences. And now, after 35 years of practice, I'm a secured practitioner. Like, well, the interest here is not on earning. The interest here is what next I can do for my profession. What are the things that are missing in the profession? How it can be substituted? How I can uplift my professional skills and how I should be transferred. Whatever the things that I wanted to have during my practice, which were not there, how will I be able to develop? That is my work which I'm thinking. Now, anybody who sees the crisis and who have managed the crisis, the one thing that in the beginning I told, like one of my guru who pushed me into the practice had told me, keep 1 month earning of a year as a buffer. When this COVID started, you may be surprised to know that I had 22 months earning as a buffer. For still, we can continue for 2 more years. Even if we don't earn, we will be able to sustain our activities without any difficulty. This is a lesson which I keep telling. One should learn the habit of saving for a rainy day. Now, I cannot say whether it was by design or default. When the crisis happened, that we realized, yeah, we have sufficient corpus to run for 2 more years. That way, financially, we have not affected. None of our activities has really hampered. Whatever the buffer money that we have, we are continuing without penalizing anyone. All our staff is very well paid. I have very few staff. All are paid, and even our routine expenses are also taken care. Whatever that we are earning now is shared towards the further development of my professional activity. That's what I have to share today. Now, whatever my philosophy and whatever the approach that I followed, one has to review at what stage of their career and life cycle they are. Whatever that I've shared may not be applicable to everyone, but the person who is listening or person who would like to follow have to gauge in what stage of their life cycle as a private practitioner they are in, and what should be applicable they should apply. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation, sir. Thank you for letting us know the various modifications that you adopted in order to continue the clinical services during this time of crisis. You also drew our attention towards the hybrid work model that you used in this period. So any questions, we will take it up towards the end, sir, during the panel discussion.
Sure.
Yeah. May I now request Dr. Madhuri Gore to kindly take over.
Hold on, sorry. Is the screen visible? No.
No, ma'am.
Here. This mouse is not. Okay. Full screen.
Vidya ma'am is webinar expert.
Yeah, she's there. I'm the original. Thank you. I've changed my title slightly. It is really my experience with COVID-19. So let me just start about the past. So last year, we had the lockdown, and all that went on that we could do very properly was classes online. And the therapy and all, we had all online talk. I mean, we would discuss with the parents and go on WhatsApp. So none of those services were charged because we were also caught by surprise, and we did not also have the expertise. Even the parents didn't have the expertise, and we used WhatsApp mainly. Other things like troubleshooting and all, everything was done. And then just when we came out and we started with shorter working hours and then longer, the routine working hours, and our caseload was beginning to catch up. Students were beginning to come back because it also depends on the university. Things were just starting to pick up, and then the second period came. And I contracted COVID in the beginning of the second period. So there was a lot of stress points. There were a lot of stress points that we had as an institution, as staff, and me personally that we had. So the previous year, I had lost my father-in-law to COVID, and my mother-in-law and sister-in-law recovered. So we thought we knew all the symptoms, but actually we didn't. And then in the institute, routine RT-PCR tests are carried out along with the safety protocols. And I had a test on 1st of March, which was negative. And 6th of March, I felt I was having a cold. So I said, oh, I've just had a test, and I took Cold Act. And my husband and my son kind of said, you better get tested. I said, see, even I have a nasal voice. Definitely, I don't have any other issue. So they kind of think, only when I couldn't smell jackfruit, I realized, and I got a test done, and it came out positive. Within half an hour of my informing the health center, we got this, thing on the door that do not visit. And then is a period of fear. There are several things. The family is afraid for you. They don't know what stage you are. Friends also. But neighbors are also afraid for themselves. See, they don't know. We share similar mates and we have met them on and off. So they are very scared. And that creates a big, it is a big stress point for everyone. It's not easy to get over the stress. After I was admitted to Ramaya, I realized it took so much care in the hospital. It was a team approach in the COVID hospitals. There is a team of doctors which decides the treatment about all the tests. And even here, I see that like for a scan, they do it at midnight. They change the timings. So even in the COVID block, they have different timings. And the helpers adjust the gantry on the CT scan instrument. So here the nurses give a personal touch. They inquire about you, and if you get depressed, they made jokes like, "Oh, you're bored, so you're Madhuri Bore, not Gore," and things like that. So I learned in a different way, from the other side, how much it makes a difference. And the other stress points is insurance, which I had a problem, but again, I got support from the hospital, which was unexpected. And I just thought that, maybe we should also offer some other kind of freebies. Though we do it routinely offer extra service, we don't always realize how much of an impact, and definitely it has an impact. As Kalyani said, so many people want hearing aids, and they did appreciate the fact that people talk to them over the phone and did that. So now we are under isolation and work from home system. And yes, so many things can be worked out at home. I could correct many assignments which were submitted online. So the one advantage that happened the last year is we learned to use the internet. So assignments were submitted online. I could, correct assignments online. Only the hard copies which were in the institute, I couldn't do. And then I went home and I saw a paper that, a man went home and saying even though that he was recovered and went home and he infected his parents. Then I got scared. So I started using the mask at home also. So it looks a bit paranoid, but I think now even Government of India is recommending that you mask at home. Because my husband tested negative and I was always worried how he would manage. See, I was fine. I knew I was fine in the hospital, but that kind of, I didn't know whether, what would happen if he got it. So that was the thing. And there are other things post-COVID. The thing is, after the COVID, they'll call you first from the hospital, then from the BBMP, that is the municipality, they call and ask, how are you? Do you have this? Do you have that? And then you start sometimes feeling, do I have this? Do I don't have this? So then you do this rigorous monitoring of blood oxygen and all that. And always you find that your pulse rate is high. Then we do this spirometry and then this yoga. Yoga, I found that the pranayama, the exercises we get, and there are so many people who are helping COVID patients to do it, breathing exercises and expand the chest, and they're really helpful. I thought maybe we can use it for voice. Now let's come to the work-related factors, that because my work is mainly academic, and I just want to make a correction. I'm no longer deputy director technical. Now my designation is only professor. So now a lot of classes have to be going on. And some first year classes, by then many of them had started face-to-face. So face-to-face classes, it was difficult to, obviously since I was not there, I couldn't do, I had to request my friends, my colleagues to do it. which they gladly do. And that kind of support was very good to me and even for the students, because especially BScs, you can't skip classes. Everything should go very regularly. MScs, sometimes, you can give them other work and then come back to the point. So then our internal assessments had to be submitted on time. And again, my colleague helped in the hard copies which were in the institute, she could value. I valued the soft copies on the Google Meet, and we sent the marks, so the marks could be sent on time. Now, in case people who are not in the academics, everything has to be done online. There is a time slot. If you miss that, you can't give the marks, so that we have to be very, very perfect in that. The next thing that I had agreed was to do RCI inspection. So as soon as I was hospitalized, I called Dr. Natraj and told him, sir, I don't think I can do it. And he was so sweet. He said, don't worry about this. You don't worry about this. You get well. We'll see about that. So immediately he was very, very supportive, because I was very worried, because I thought, suppose he says that, as soon as you become better, you come. As I was little worried, should I come, should I not come? But he was so perceptive and he said that. So I immediately wrote to RCI and said, I cannot come, go for inspection. The second thing was therapy. So some of the older cases I take therapy online, and those kind of when they came and met me afterwards, they were so concerned and felt so good. The older persons with CI, and there is one case with auditory neuropathy whom I used to take therapy online. So they were very nice, and they didn't move away. They're just concerned. And one yes, and we never realized how much was affected. In the hospital, there were whole families which were there, full father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, children, all in the hospital. But it must have been such a big expense for them. Yes, and then post-COVID, the other thing is that you get tired fast. Everyone knows about it, I'm sure, but the tiredness catches up with you later. So here we go to work, you come back late, then you have to bathe and desanitize and sanitize yourself and everything. Start work, and then you can't do any reading. Now in academics, especially, every day you have something or the other to read. So the spillover of work continues at home, and this could not be done. And so there's a big backlog which was taking time, catch up with. So this is a big thing in the part. I was, when it was in the beginning, so everyone else in the institute was there to support. And this support is something which we can't, believe. For a professional, no one, as soon as you went back, you get a warm welcome. Everyone asks how you are, and everyone wants to know, how things are, and, they take trouble. No, you sit, you do this. So this kind of thing, you get such a lovely feeling, and that way our institute, we are all friends. Actually, even the office staff would call me every day when I was in the hospital to find out how I was. In the whole thing, this support goes a long way in alleviating stress and making work easier. Because if one person can't do the work, someone else helps. And this this kind of a support group is very, very essential. In the whole thing is, fear is the big key, which causes distress. And if we overcome fear, we are able to manage a lot of the items. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your experiences with COVID-19 with us. You are indeed a true COVID warrior. In your presentation, you highlighted the importance of yoga that yoga has in one's life, and you also mentioned the coping up strategies that you use to overcome the difficulties of COVID-19. Thank you, ma'am. So there's a small announcement. Few of the participants have joined a little late. So I take this opportunity to welcome all the participants. There are currently over 650 plus participants who have joined with us. So extend a warm welcome to all the participants once again. We now proceed to the panel discussion. So the panel discussion the panelists in the panel discussion will be Dr. B. Mallikarjun Urs, Dr. Kalyani Mandke, and Dr. Madhuri Gore. The theme of the session is effect of COVID-19 on speech and hearing. I now request Dr. Asha Ethiraj to moderate the session.
Thank you, Sanjana.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
had an excellent set of talks from three eminent speakers. And I would just like to highlight saying that there were certain things that it made an impact on me. Kalyani's information saying it doesn't, COVID pandemic didn't really affect practice. And the fact that patients actually understood about the problem more after the fact that they were using masks and realized that they do have a problem. That was something new to me. And I thought that was a great message that came across, saying people realize that they have to use their hearing. Dr. Mallikarjun gave such a brilliant idea of using a hybrid technique and doing something such that you don't have too much of contact with the patient and stagger your activities such that you are not letting patients be in contact with each other. And Dr. Madhuri brilliantly talked about her own personal experience. I know Kalyani has also had this experience, but Madhuri gave us insight into how it is to be somebody who is affected by the condition and how she's overcome it with her peers and her co-workers helping out with the condition over there in the activities in the college, as well as helping her doing things so that she doesn't feel the stress so much. The psychological support is something that she brought out over there. So I am hoping that we will keep time and manage, because we have another session after that, and with which we should finish up. So I will request everybody to be just to the point, and I know you covered a lot of the points over there. And I just want to take this from yesterday's discussion to ask you all the point of the, I will start off. I understood from Kalyani's point of view that you made a point, but I still would ask you, and this is for all three of you. I'll start with Kalyani, then go to Dr. Mallikarjun, and then Madhuri. Do you think you should give priority to your speech and hearing practice or to your life? Speech and hearing practice or your life? Kalyani.
Hard question. When you're suffering yourself, then the family is affected. You think about self, but once you're out of it, then you need to move on forward. But here I just want to give you my personal experience. You all know I am a very optimistic or dangerously optimistic person, but I experienced myself such a depression or pessimism in month of October. The entire month, the whole one thought was, I want to close this business. And this was obsessive, compulsive thought, and just couldn't come out of it at all. And my husband required more attention. Of course, he was weak, but then anyway, at home for 2 months. So this was not something I could talk to him. So this was my battle, and it was very hard to sort of go through all that. And I still remember 3rd November morning, I woke up and I said, no, I want to continue myself. And I told my husband, new Kalyani is born. So, there are times that you struggle yourself, but I think it's a cycle. And this is COVID is very unpredictable. Things were there. Knowing theory and going through it, there are two different experiences altogether. So as Madhuri mentioned about it, you worry about many things that time, So anyway, but still profession comes, and I want to continue. I'll continue for another 20 years. So,
They're talking about the third wave. So, Dr. Mallikarjun, what do you have to say?
First, I have to survive. Then the
Yes.
thriving comes. The hope for thriving, yes. First, you should survive. I don't want to take a risk. Plus, I have done enough. 4.5. Yesterday was the 14th of June. I came to Ahmedabad 45 years ago. And now, like, there are youngsters who are coming. We have to encourage them to take over. In fact, I want somebody to take over my activity. I would like to contribute to the profession, not from the business point of view, from uplifting the profession point of view, I would like to.
Madhuri, what do you have to say? Your profession or your life? Which one will take priority?
Yeah, when family is affected, family will come first at that point. But everything passes. The point is, at each point you will pass through the worst thing, and then you will come. Then you need the profession. So we don't give up one. It's not mutually exclusive, so to speak.
And
But,
I'm sure
yes.
we all. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yes, continue, Madhuri.
No, I just remembered yesterday's discussion and that how much we have to contribute. It is good. And I think maybe, till I got it, I don't know how I got it also. I was fine with going and meeting people. I would sit close to the people and just say, even though I'm wearing all those things, I was not so worried until it came out of the blue. Yeah. Now I get nervous, though still, yeah.
And so from the three of you, I get the feeling there are times you feel that your life is more important, but there are times when you feel that yes, your profession also has to go forward. And I think it depends on what happens. And when we lost a colleague, I think all of us were shaken at that point of time, and it must have affected each one of us and what happened at that point of time. I will ask the next question to Dr. Mallikarjun. Do you feel that the speech and hearing professionals with comorbid conditions should not practice and avoid getting the disease?
I fully agree. They should not practice. Now, they have to take it easy. So you can always compensate. Now, set the priority. And is this very essential? And looking into like, can it wait? How much it affects if he has to wait? You have to weigh, like, do we really, what I call a sort of overemphasize the thing? Now, see, I'll tell you, in my experiences, how much difference it makes to a person if he misses 1 month session. Not that we are not going to do it. Are there any alternate method of coping? Like most of our, like I do a lot of work with basics, acquired language disorder. And there was a time they were so much dependent on me. What I thought is that I told them the method of how to download some of the software that was commercially available. I was monitoring. I trained the caretakers to do it. They were constantly in touch with me. I was in touch with them. They continue to do the work. Earlier, they used to do one-to-one, face-to-face. Now, with the caretakers, they are taking care. And still, they are in touch with me how to go about it further. Now, this COVID has taught, like, we can reach the unreached. We can think of an alternate method of coping. And we have to enforce the caretakers. Like we're talking about cochlear implant. We empower the parents. Why not empower the caretakers to do it? We can reach the unreached. And most of the people who have approached me, they're not from Ahmedabad. Most of them are from different places, almost 500 miles away from Ahmedabad. Still, we are continuing the work.
So the point is saying, think of an alternative way and we can still continue to give the services. And that's the take-home message that you're giving. yes, we have to be cautious, but still maybe make the caregivers take over. This is what my message yesterday also was. The caregivers should take over, and we are training the caregivers to do a lot of the activities. So our approach and handling the situation is what you're saying. We should make a change and continue to give the services. Madhuri, I have the next question for you. Do you feel that having been affected by COVID, you have developed a fear of contacting the disease again, and this will impact your professional work?
To some extent, I do have a fear that I can contact it again because of these new variants. And
Yes.
though apparently the chance is very limited, the doctor said, because some bits of the other DNA will be, not DNA, the RNA will be along with whatever you got. But yeah, more than professional practice, I think I'm afraid of giving it to somebody. Giving, to family members. That is a greater
Family
fear.
members. I
Professional
think, yes.
is
So
online
professionally,
is possible.
so with the online work, you feel that is the safe. But you're at work right now, I think, or you're at home?
No, I'm back at work.
Okay. This is a question I will ask Dr. Mallikarjun. Do you think, or Kalyani, I'll ask you. You mentioned saying it is more majorly your family was also affected. So that, and I don't think you have any other family members with you. So that is sending like what Madhuri's fear was not there for you because your husband was already affected. Did you, and you said you had support from your colleagues, but was there problem from your clients who felt saying you had a disease and that you might be transmitting it to them, or they didn't know about it? Did you make it public?
In the clinic, it was not disclosed to the clients per se, but many knew. Rather, I was very open on that. So, like, as I realized in last wave, people were not ready to talk about it. When I started talking about I was positive and I was going through this, and then many people opened up, especially this, depression, anxiety factor, and all many factors came out actually. Those were not discussed in month of July, August last year, and then post-COVID symptoms. So it opened up a lot. I just want to just give a little different dimension. Our history pages are filled with, sufferings of untouchables. We have never experienced anything on that line. Okay. But like I had absolutely no support here at home. Me and my husband was hospitalized. Of course, there are relatives. And then, somebody would send me a tiffin. So what was the procedure done? Put it in the lift, call me over there that I'm sending the, tiffin to you. It will come on 4th floor. I will open the lift door and take that dabba. That bothered me a lot. That really, I had tears, I realized that what kind of suffering these people must have gone through for years together. You just keep meal outside and say, leke jao, or don't hand over, or don't touch, or don't come to the close proximity. That isolation bothered me a lot. It was a new experience altogether. And then I felt, no, we need to help out people. We need to reach out to them. And now, of course, we have vaccination. I've been vaccinated. Second, probably then if at all I get affected, symptoms will be milder. If at all something else happens, it's a destiny. But we need to reach out people. But at the same time, it's only I'm connecting with the clients. I don't visit any friends, family members, and that has been since last March. That is a principle we have decided that we will not meet anyone because we are exposed to many people. So clinic and home. So since last March 2020 till today, I have not visited any of my friend, relative as such. That's my personal discipline. Thank you.
It must have socially affected your entire activity.
I'm not
you feeling socially isolated. I know, but doing through Zoom meetings or video conferencing is not the same as meeting with people, definitely.
True. It's a compensation. It's a compromise. and one has to live with it, so nothing more than that. I mean, I don't feel sorry about it. I don't feel.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Uh, I would ask this to Madhuri again because you've been affected over here. And again, Kalyani, I asked about her clients. I would ask about your neighbors. Maybe Kalyani also can add on about the neighbors. But first, I'll ask Madhuri. Did you feel that you were treated differently by your neighbors? Because family have that compassion and they have the fear for you. But when it comes to your surroundings and people around you, did you feel that they affected you differently or treated you
The
differently?
neighbors, correct, neighbors were very afraid, they were scared.
Okay.
And
So,
even
I can
my
understand
maid
that
was
also from
afraid to come inside our house, though the date was over on the thing. And
okay.
she kept saying the other people are asking them, are they okay? How long since she had? So this kind of thing, it really became like an issue, and you feel very bad, as Kalyani said. You feel bad. I mean, so finally I told my maid, see, you don't come. Don't be afraid. If you're afraid, don't come. That's fine. If she had told me I'm afraid, I don't want to come, that's fine. But when she doesn't tell it like straightforward, no, then it made me feel bad. And even the uh, neighbors and all, no, they were very scared, definitely, because all in my block are senior citizens. So they thought,
Okay.
how I got, how, like that.
Yeah, because Kalyani said about the different dabba being sent up over there. So I'm sure you also
And yes,
felt that
my
isolation.
correct. No, I was in a cushy place. I was in isolation in the guest house, in the hospital. I got food. My husband was isolated. He can't go out, see. But his students would come and leave food outside only. But that, because this was the second wave, no? So we knew that, okay, this is the what to say, the protocol which should be followed. As in the surgery, you throw things and this that kind of don't avoid all touch. So the students were so helpful. They kept food for him outside. But unfortunately, neighbors were scared. That is really a fact.
Kalyani, what about you? Because you also say you live in a flat where your neighbors also
No, fortunately,
scared.
we don't have neighbors in our floor, so that was saved. And I had just informed everybody that we are on the fourth floor and this is all has happened. So of course, nobody extended any help. But at the same time, there was nothing like, talking about it or discussion as such. 6 weeks later, somebody saw me, so they say, oh, you're well now. So I said, yes, it's back to work. So kind of thing. But so little indifferent attitude, but that's okay. It did not hurt me also anywhere because that's how we need to keep the distance. So it was okay.
Dr.
Yeah,
Mallikarjun, I
one
have.
neighbor was sorry.
Yes,
Carry on.
continue, Madhuri. I'm sorry, continue.
No. One neighbor said, "Can I help?" And one neighbor said, "You must have been careless." So I had two opposite
Wow.
views.
So you had different over there. I mean, nobody's careless. You don't know how you get it. It just comes in, and it's not that you went and asked for it to come and get you. Dr. Mallikarjun, I have the next question for you. This is with reference to the kind of services that you came because of this fear of getting the disease. Did you compromise on the kind of services that you were offering in your clinics?
Yes. See, actually, our services have been reduced to 50%. One. Second thing is that we have set the priority. If the thing can be postponed, I request them, like you can wait for the situation to improve, then we will do it. And there are certain clients, we have to attend to them on an emergency basis because they become totally disturbed if they don't get the help. For them, yes, I prefer online first. If they are not happy, they said we would like to meet. Yes, staggered time, especially I go on Sundays when the complete building is empty and I call them at a specific time. I do go and attend with the restrictions, of course. Like they have to be there on time. I would not spend more than 15 or 20 minutes. It's a limited time. I do offer the services, but not as the way I used to offer like 8 hours and 5 days a week for 270 days. No, not that kind. Maybe
reference
1
of
or
tests.
2 hours per week. Most of the work is online.
The tests that you were administering, is there a compromise in the kind of tests that you were administering?
Yes. I used to do a lot of neonatal testing. Lot. Almost I used to say about 1 case a day. That has been reduced. I have not seen a single infant since last 445 days.
Okay, so that means that's going to be something that we're going to be facing at a little later time. A lot of our children are going to be identified later. So all that work that we put in for newborn screening, that's going to be affected in some way.
I never said that the services should not be offered. I always told them, look, these are the other centers where the services are available. And
Okay.
if you can make use of it, please go. But I am not.
Okay. Kalyani, can you address this question? Is there a compromise in your services that you're offering?
No, we addressed pediatric cases also. When the number was on the higher side last year, it was month of September. Pune number COVID positive was very high. So September and October, I had told those people not to come for ABR testing. And then of course we did the follow-up and saw them in month of November. This year, we were comfortable, and I talked to the family that, are you comfortable to come out of it? We are okay, we'll take every care and precaution as such. So ABR testing was continuous on, like every month, whatever 7-8 cases I may see, under 2 years of age or something, those were the number was same all those time, because it's just developing the confidence among the both. Family should feel comfortable to come out, and as well as we should be comfortable. So if it works, then that was. But this year, again, I'm saying that first year it was a fear factor was very strong, and the second wave, we all are emotionally prepared. So I see the sea change in that. To discuss, to talk about it also was much easier than last year. So we have not reduced any work as such.
Okay, so yeah, I think you all are very brave, because a lot of people, when we were talking about yesterday also, they talked about how, especially ABR, OEs, where your contact levels are a lot more, they have reduced doing those kind of testing, but have things where like we are doing an audiometric testing and you just place the headphone and you can go to the other room and do it. So those kind of tests that they have continued. So yeah, and so your staff are all well protected, and then they're doing these tests over there. So that's
and
good.
it's a comfort zone, when it's like I had asked them, are you comfortable to do the test? If you're not, I will do it. But everybody is taking turn. It's all for mapping, therapy. Of course, most of them have switched over to online, and it's a new way, but they want face to face also. So that compromise is still not, we have not strike the balance. It's in and out kind of thing. But the therapy part has been most online as a majority, so almost 70 to 80%. But diagnostic is all we need to do it, So we are okay.
So you're okay. One last question to all of you. Has this pandemic affected you financially? I know Dr. Mallikarjun talked about saying he's got a buffer system, but did your income come down during this pandemic? It must have come down.
Yes, see, for suppose instead of 12 months, if my business was on for 9 months, naturally it will come down. Okay, so that is the whole thing. That means you cannot just make it or compromise, or the entire business comes down to that level. But what I see, it's proportionately the system is on support, or all logistic is working, salary is taken care of, buffer effect or whatever is there. We could pay all the taxes also. So I have not said no for the tax, and I did not say, oh, I don't have money to pay tax and all that. So all those things are done, So the waxing and waning will be there. That now what people are saying, our economy has W shape. So we all are sailing in the same boat as such. But it was not as equivalent to what 2019 revenue was there. So 2020 was less than this. But is it like just managed to survive? No, we are above that. We are comfortable.
So Mallikarjun said that he had buffer system over there. So I think you have managed.
Now, whatever that I earn is a surplus now. Now,
Mm.
actually, we have a buffer for all our maintenance of the clinic and fixed expenses and everything. The only thing is saving part has taken a hit. Otherwise, whatever that I earn is extra.
See, when you're in business, you have to take away, keep certain thing as buffer from day one, whether it's 1%, 5%, or 10%. And if you have a financial discipline, nothing goes wrong. Surplus, as Mallikarjun mentioned, surplus may not be there. But can I survive? Yes, we can sell through very easy.
Comfortable.
I think there have been certain centers where the salaries have been reduced over there because of the COVID. So there have been people who have taken a financial hit, and luckily you all didn't have to reduce the salaries of your staff. So this was a brilliant to try and keep up with time. I like to thank the three of you for excellent answers, brilliant interaction, and being very candid about your fears and the kind of problems that you all faced and how you've overcome your problems. And I think the take home messages is to continue to work. You might be having your fears, overcome your fears and continue with the work that you are doing. And I think from all of you, you have to start saving from the day you start earning so that you have some kind of a buffer at some stage when there is a problem. It may be a pandemic, it could be anything else, but you still have to have a backup plan so that you're not hit too much and then you're not on the streets. So thank you all very much for this beautiful interaction. And over to Sanjana.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashwin.
I thank all the panelists and the moderator for a wonderful interactive session. On behalf of the Institute, I request the panelist and the moderator to accept the certificate.